First, tell us what you're doing here today in El Paso, the Dolce.
Well, my first stop was down in Clint, at the Clint Early High School, Early College Academy, excuse me, the Clint Early College Academy, talking to a number of the students about a great program they have in conjunction with Microsoft called the Microsoft TEALS program. So this is preparing our high school students here in the El Paso region for jobs that don't exist today by having them exposed to coding and being able to work with real practitioners around the country in order to sharpen those coding skills. It's important, and I would encourage anybody who has a kid going to school in Clint, they should look into this program because it's going to help them get a leg up on their peers and get a skill set that's important for the future. I'm here today talking to the Central Business Association. I'm going to give an update on NAFTA. NAFTA is something that is incredibly important to not only El Paso, but our state and the rest of the nation. This is something that we need to strengthen NAFTA, what I like to call NAFTA 2.0. And there's still a lot of moving parts here, but to give some perspective on what's next and what we can expect is something that's going to be important to most folks in this area. And then also give an update on a recent trip I took to Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, talking about how to counter drug trafficking organizations that are bringing a lot of drugs into our country, but also dealing with the family separation issue. This is an issue that El Paso knows too well, and trying to understand how we get the 366 kids that are still in HHS custody, whose parents have been deported back to another country, make sure we reunite those kids with their families.
Tell me a little bit about what did you witness in Guatemala and those countries that you're going to be able to share with people today?
Well, first and foremost, I was there to go meet with national security officials, civil society, the business leaders, talking about how do we address some of the root causes of illegal immigration. People are leaving the Northern Triangle, the three countries of the Northern Triangle, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, in order to get away from the lack of economic opportunities. They're getting away from violence. And it's not just violence from criminal gangs like MS-13 or drug trafficking organizations, but it's violence against women. You're seeing oftentimes a husband beating their wife and their children, and so people are fleeing that. So if you address those root causes, you're going to stem the tide of illegal immigration. And one of the things that I saw when I was there, meeting with several of the presidents and the first ladies, they have these what they call welcome centers, where anybody who is deported back to those countries starts there. And they're looking to try to, if someone doesn't have the equivalent of what we would call a high school education, how can they do that? How can they connect them with businesses? And so the other thing I learned is that when they take everybody that's been back over the last couple of years, with the exception of 9 people in El Salvador, the government and local officials have been able to find another family member for that person or family or child to go back to. And the number in Guatemala was 0. So they have a pretty good track record of reconnecting, returning deportees with family members, so they can make sure that they stay and be productive citizens in those countries.
What are some possible solutions that the U.S. can do to kind of help with the violence
right.
Down there?
So one of the biggest problems that you see in the Northern Triangle is corruption within the police. And so if something's going wrong, nobody can call the police. Or they view the police as a threat. And we've done programs in El Salvador between USAID, a part of State Department called the INL, working with local civil society to one, get rid of corrupt police, but also train the local police in what we would call here community policing, and making sure that the police is building relationships with the communities, that the community can feel that they can go to someone. And this is where our foreign aid budget comes in handy in order to fund these programs. And so one thing that we can do very quickly is stop decreasing the amount of foreign aid we're sending to some of these places, because a fraction, pennies spent on this problem, on the root cause in a place like the Northern Triangle, is going to have major dividends here in the United States. And it's significantly cheaper to do that than to arrest people and house them in detention facilities here in the United States. So let's address those root causes, and that was some of the examples that I saw. When it comes to countering drugs, drug trafficking organizations are making about $66 billion a year in the United States of America. We're starting to see a problem with something called fentanyl, which is incredibly deadly, and making sure that we're improving information exchange between our government and the militaries in those areas to go after this shared common threat.
So just so I'm following correctly, if we're able to continue providing aid and not decrease that, the money spent there would help lessen the strain on our borders, on our detention centers, and save there, correct?
100%, and there's some examples. El Salvador, from 2017 to 2018, we've seen a decrease by about 17% the number of people that have come from El Salvador to the United States illegally. Right? And one of those reasons is because through these community policing programs, we've been able to work with our partners on the ground to decrease the violence in some of those areas, and we're seeing a decrease in people that are leaving those areas to try to come to the United States to escape violence. So there's already an example of how a fraction or a small amount of money can decrease the amount of illegal traffic that's coming in here and that we have to handle. And that allows us to focus on the kingpin human smugglers, the drug trafficking organization. That allows us to focus on how do we streamline legal immigration, how do we fix DACA, and it allows us to take advantage and focus on some of those issues.
You mentioned NAFTA earlier. NAFTA's been used a lot lately. A lot of the changes that are happening or coming. What's your thoughts and what new can we expect?
Well, I think the agreement on automotive parts is probably a good thing. Getting away from a 5-year sunset clause. That means after 5 years the agreement is over. The key is going to be, can some of these changes, can Canada participate and get on board with this, and can we resolve this sooner rather than later? I believe by the end of this week, if an agreement is not transmitted to Congress, we won't have the opportunity to bring it up in the lame duck session, which is the session after the elections. And so what would happen with a new Congress in 2019, it's anybody's bet. So we still have a long way to go. Everybody would agree that NAFTA needs to be upgraded, but we need to make sure that we're strengthening it as much as we can.
How's the campaign trail been going for you?
Look, for me, it's been great. My week before the election looks no different from my week last week, which looks no different from my week a year ago. So I feel good about what I'm hearing as I crisscross this district, and my goal is always to make sure we're delivering for our district, and people here in El Paso know that. I've been able to deliver $20 million in projects in my part of El Paso County to make sure we have sewage, water. We were here, inaugurating a plan there. We were working, making sure kids have clean drinking water. So these are projects that we've been able to deliver on. The Marcelino Serna renaming of the port of Tornillo to honor the commitment to this amazing man, but also to use this to signify the role that Latino Americans have played in our military and defending our country. So folks, remember these types of things, and I feel good about what happens in November.
And speaking of elections, have you decided who you're going to vote for in the U.S. Senate for race?
Look, I know both of them well, and I've made it very clear. I think Senator Cruz is in the pole position, has the opportunity to win. But thank you.